Welcome to another episode of our Founders Podcast. I'm your host, Ash, and this is a show where I interview proven founders and industry experts who share their stories, strategies, and insights to help you build, launch, and grow your business. In this episode, I talked to Tobin, the co founder or primary founder of Virtual Storefronts, actually. Tobin is a tech whiz with deep roots from Bangor, Maine. He's a guy who's all about community and local businesses, and his journey started with a newspaper delivery in the middle of May winter and some awesome comic book trades at the Wizard of Comics. Bangor taught him the value of his hometown and its people, which is why he's now running a cool project called a hometown Maine Feed to celebrate his roots. It's a way of giving back to the Bangor and all the friends and families who's been shaped by the same community spirit. But Tobin is not just about nostalgia. He's also a tech guru with over 2 decades of experience in big cities like NYC, San Francisco, and Atlanta. He's now bringing his expertise to virtual storefronts and a game-changing platform for local businesses. Tobin is all about making sure local businesses stand out in the online world, and he's your go-to guy for all things tech and community. So keep an eye. I hope you enjoy the show. Tobin, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Ash. I'm looking forward to sharing with your founder audience all about virtual storefronts and the years that I put in so far.
Great. Do you have a favorite quote, something that inspires or motivates you that you can share?
I do. I have a lot of favorite quotes. I actually journal a lot. I keep copious notes, as most founders do, I would assume. So the quote that I'll share with you, which I think I heard it from DHH, David. He runs Basecamp and he does some posting or whatever. Not all of his stuff is amazing, but this quote was really good. I think it came from him. Don't optimize too early. I thought that was just an ingenious quote because there's a temptation. I don't know about others, but in me, there's a perfectionist inside, and that perfectionist wants to deliver a perfect product to the customer right out of the gate. And I think you want to deliver something that you can stand behind. And our first viable, like our minimum viable product kind of rolled out in 2021. And it's a completely different product than we have today. But that's thanks to the fact that we didn't optimize too early, and we listened to our customers, who essentially guided the development of the product from a simple website solution to we started with a website solution. So 2 out of 3 of our local businesses here in Western North Carolina, where I'm doing the pilot, mostly rural businesses, local mom and pop shops, don't have a website. So we provided that website solution for them. And then we kind of put front and center. We include a set of keywords with every storefront, which is a website substitute that's hosted at virtualstorefronts.com. And keywords were always a part of that, but then we kind of create an HTML shell in order for them to be found much easier, move them into a more prominent spot so that shoppers could see them, and then really pushed Google to index them so that it became a search engine optimization solution as well. And then at the end of last year, 2022, kind of the beginning of this year, we added in a live feed because some of our customers, we wanted to make sure that everyone could be included with a product. Because we're building a network at the end of the day that can accommodate 20 million local businesses that don't have franchise support in the United States. We're kind of like the answer to a franchise because all the businesses can work together on virtual storefronts and become much bigger. So we wanted to make sure that there was no barrier for anyone to enter the network. Even though it is paid, we wanted to make sure that it was as accessible as possible. So some of our customers were like, okay, great, cool SEO results. You're getting 30,000 hits a week or 30,000 a month in our pilot, which was great. It was growing at a very fast rate. But they're like, oh, but we don't need that. Like, because certain people just don't want the SEO when you're talking to the public. They don't understand it or they don't care. I already have my Facebook page. So we added in the live feed to accommodate any business that was looking for something that was more active, more engaging. And then, so we added that. And as you know, so I think I can speak to any founder's experience starting a network, which almost, I mean, all new tech is in some way a network, I would say, because it's looking to scale up. And so what we found is people are like, oh, okay, hit us with the next thing. We want this feed option. And what happened was it's really hard to get people to engage in your network when your audience is not huge, when you're not scaled. So we had a problem where it's like they're already, just for the record, the network of record where I am is Facebook. Facebook is the median age in this area is older. It's a kind of retired, and it's a vacation destination. So everyone's on Facebook, and all the businesses are on Facebook. So they don't want another Facebook. They don't want another digital chore to do. And we offer technology without the work is kind of the premise, because they don't have to set up anything to get this website solution. So we were kind of like, oh no, we're giving them something to do. And then you're like, oh, how do we deal with this? And we had to solve that problem too. So
let's take some steps back. So
okay.
Yes. Good start with the code, because that actually derived your business thing. And I was about to ask you about what exactly is virtual storefronts, but I'm guessing I've got a little bit of idea. Consider me a 5-year-old,
right?
Maybe somebody who doesn't understand internet at all. I have read this word first time, virtual storefronts. I run a small business in your locality. Let's say I run a bakery, right? I'm a 70 years old man, right? I don't understand it. Virtual storefronts. What does the product do? Who is it for? And what's the main problem you're helping solve?
So the product, so the people that we're helping are mostly people that don't have websites, although we do have website designers who recommend virtual storefronts with a website, because we are simply boosting local search. Google is learning from us what we do. So if you're walking into a business and saying, hey, and this is how the pilot was done, in-person sales, and it took several months this year to translate our pitch into an online pitch, which is now very, like, we've been working on it for 2 months straight, and now if you go to this, to this QR code right here, you will get the information. You will get that's really what I would do with this guy. I would send him to that, because it's something that anyone can understand. But it's without going into that sales page, I would say you're not online because it's a huge hassle, right? Like, you didn't get into running a bakery on Main Street to spend more time behind a computer. A lot of these people are retired, right? Like, they're actually, a lot of them are retired tech workers from Atlanta that live in this area. So we are 2 hours from Atlanta here. We're 2 hours from Asheville, Chattanooga, and Knoxville. So we're central but rural. There's a lot of people here that have had corporate jobs that want nothing to do with, like, dealing with, websites. If they do make a website, they have to register the domain. They have to not forget, they have to find a host. There's an entire litany, and the internet's constantly shifting, right? The internet is like the sands of the internet. Everyone who maintains a website knows it's like, oh, I forgot to update my SSL certificate. These icons aren't loading because there's a conflict in my WordPress. It's like, we're all tech people, and it's a major burden. And it's a time consumer, kind of like just solving the problem of being online. So our premise is, like, you want to be online, you understand the benefit. The reason you're not doing it is because, or if you're doing it, you're doing it in a very minimal way that's not SEO optimized or whatever. The reasons that you're doing that is because you have an innate understanding that it's a pain to maintain a website. It's a huge cost. It's thousands of dollars. You have to like wait for a webmaster to get back to you while there's old information on your page. Like anyone can log into a virtual storefront and change their information themselves, like a Facebook profile. And so all of their outbound, they control their outbound information, even though it's not a technical experience for them. It's a consumer experience for them because it's a profile on a network. So our value prop to them is, yeah, I get it. I understand why you didn't build a storefront, or I understand why you didn't build a website, because who wants to forget to register the domain, and then the Korean company is selling fidget spinners on it because they repurchased it because there's traffic and whatever, and then you don't have any control over it. A lot of variables that people don't want to deal with. It's with virtual storefronts, essentially you go, you make the purchase, and it takes 5 minutes to make the purchase for them. We then assign that to a contract worker, a merchant ambassador. They build it out, and you just receive a text link on your cell phone, like boom, in about 5 to 7 days, and it's built for you. We might call and do an interview. We scrape from all of your online profiles, but it's a fully opt-in build of someone's online identity. And we include a set of keywords. We include all of this robust stuff that people know has value. They aren't dummies. They know it has value. They just know that the value, that what they can do within the website framework is they aren't white collar workers. Like they're limited. Either they're going to dump $5,000 into it and do it right, and then give themselves like flashbacks to pulling their hair out and dealing with all this stuff, or we just take care of the problem for them.
Okay. So let me reiterate it. What I understood is virtual storefront actually connects with people who would like to have an online identity, or they don't care about online identity, but you explain them how you can help them gather all the data available on their profile or their service or product, whatever they're selling or doing business with yourself, without asking them hundreds of emails. Put them all together, get their content ready, put all that content in one online identity. So it's not, you're not directly in competition with Shopify, because it's like an online store for people who are running stores. You're not in competition with Wix because it's a website builder for people who want to build a website. You're actually standing alone there because you're actually a one-click solution for people who do not have an online identity, and sometimes they don't care, but they understand the importance of it, and you make it super easy for them,
right,
by hooking all these gears together, so things just work.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That is 100% correct. It is the competitive space that we're in is a little weird, and actually a lot of VC has stayed clear of this because we exist within a competitive space with Facebook and Google. I will tell your other founders that there's a lot of blind spots. There's a lot of white space to build companies like this that exist within big tech, and it's just a matter of figuring out how big tech is failing. And big tech is really failing, like in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm not saying that it's going broke. It's obviously like Google and Facebook and these behemoths are really making a huge amount of money, but there's a lot of openings, I guess is one way to say it, in deliverables to the population. Because, for example, Facebook would be looked at as a direct competitor in this space, because everyone in my market, everyone in the United States pretty much who's serving a retail market maintains a Facebook profile, a Facebook page. Now, Facebook is, first of all, Facebook is impossible to navigate because it's a clutter. It's a cluster of distraction, number one. But number two, even more interestingly, Facebook's goal is to keep everyone, including, right. So waste everyone's time, for lack of a better word. Facebook has essentially taken on the role of television for the 21st century. They what they want is they want people to click like about, oh, there's trivia night at Hoppy Trout. I'm going to click like. But I don't want, Facebook does not want me to get out of my seat and spend 3 hours at Hoppy Trout. Facebook wants me to continue scrolling so that they can sell advertising. I did the numbers recently, and it costs about $240 million a day to run Facebook, to run Meta. So, but they're not changing their business model anytime soon. Part of why they're not really equipped to get local business owners information to local businesses is because that's if they actually achieve that objective in an effective and efficient way, then people would spend 5 minutes on the platform, not 50 minutes lost on the platform scrolling through reels. If it was easy for a business owner to post on Facebook, right? And they could just get in there, get to their page, somehow find what they need to find among all of the clutter, get to their page and not get distracted and and they're able to just get the job done in 5 minutes. Then Facebook loses revenue for the 50 minutes that business owner who really just wants to go and get their business done in an enterprise solution kind of way. They're just another set of eyeballs for Facebook to sell advertising to. So Facebook can't really be aligned with those interests. We're actually because we're a startup, we're able to align ourselves with the interests of our customer, which is getting customers in the store, getting information out efficiently because they pay us to be in the network, right? So because we're an enterprise solution for the smallest companies, right? Yeah. So an enterprise solution doesn't say, "Hey, we're here to waste your time and make things distracting," and yeah, it's the opposite. That's what the high tier level development is enterprise solutions. We're simply an enterprise solution for local businesses.
Local business, right?
Yeah.
And I want to talk about where the story began and where the idea came from. But before we go into it, I'm eager to learn more about the person behind this venture. Can you take us back to your roots? Share with our listeners about your upbringing, your childhood, and how did your early experiences shape your journey and eventually led you to become an entrepreneur?
Sure. I'd love to talk about that. That is a major part of why people do things, right? Why do people build technology? There's some formative experience at the beginning that really makes things matter. And for me, I was born in Maine, and Maine is the town that I was born in is Bangor, Maine, which is in central Maine, which is about 100 miles north of Portland, which is the major city in Maine. And it's 35,000 people, the third largest city in Maine. It's a tight-knit community. I don't know if you know the Morrissey song, "Every Day is Like Sunday." That kind of reminds me of Maine. But it's, in any case, it's a place that, it's a small community. Everyone knows each other. And I had a lot of jobs growing up there. First of all, I'm not technically from Maine because my parents are academic and they moved there my dad moved there for the University of Maine job and my mom was in the symphony orchestra. So as the Maine humorist Tim Sample says about people like myself who are born in Maine but parents aren't from Maine, he says, if a cat has in the Maine accent, if a cat has kittens in the oven, you don't call them biscuits. So I'm not officially a Mainer. Yeah. So in any case, I grew up working, delivering newspapers. And then I got a job downtown working at a comic book shop and working in retail. I've worked with retail businesses off and on my entire life. I worked in Manhattan after I graduated from college in Ohio at Oberlin College. I worked at a photo studio in Manhattan, and then I worked independently in New York City for years. I've always worked with business owners, and as a contract photographer, commercial photographer, and editorial photographer, I would go to people's businesses. And then I worked in Georgia, consolidating businesses into feeds to market them, to leverage audiences for marketing purposes on social before I started this project. So I've always worked with local businesses, and I've always tried to figure out how networks can engage in local communities. I'm a huge fan of like local wealth, because why wouldn't you be, right? So if we can divert 5% of what people in this area are spending in Amazon, right, on Amazon to local spending by flooding this market with keywords like designer pens or jeans or whatever. And when people search on Google, they find those items, they find the storefront comes up as a search result. So it's literally intercepting people doing search in this area. Like, our vision is to just turn Google search into a local finder for what's around you using these keywords. So we're doing that here in Western North Carolina. If you do a search right now for jeans in Andrews, NC, the first search result will be virtual storefront for Rain Boutique. And interestingly, Taylor, who runs Rain Boutique, is probably 28. And a lot of our since the post pilot, like our pilots we're wrapping up the pilot now and taking it nationwide, because we have a product now that really can serve everyone's needs. But the real traction we're getting, interestingly, is from 20-somethings, because they know, like 20-somethings who run their own business, because they know what a pain in the, it's a branding job. It's it's a technical job. It's a huge headache. So when they see $199, right, and that includes setup on an annual subscription basis, they're thinking that is the deal of a century for getting a website solution. And it's inside of a network that's more powerful, because it's a place where all the local businesses can work together to be a larger presence, right? All of those keywords go in there.
So okay.
I kind of got out of my background there. I should get.
No, I grasp what you mentioned there, and I want to talk about it. But before going there, you mentioned about that you work with a lot of local businesses. So whom do you think the key influences from your family, from your surrounding, that played a significant role in shaping your entrepreneur spirit? I would love to hear more about it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So, I grew up in a very, how to put it? I grew up in a fairly liberal family that was very interested in, sustainability. Shopping locally is almost a completely apolitical issue in the United States. Local business is very trusted. If you spend $1 locally, the return of that in that community, the acceleration of wealth is like astronomically fast. It's completely different. It's like 40 cents of that dollar stays local when you spend it here. Whereas if you spend it at Walmart, it's like $1 or a penny on $1 or something like that. So there's a huge impact issue here. And for me, it's like, if you look at all of the social problems that particularly places like this have. So I live in a town that used to have 3,500 people here in Western North Carolina, Andrews. It's a post-industrial town that lost all of its jeans and textile manufacturing in 1995, 96. NAFTA took all of those jobs and like sent them to Mexico. And the town now has half the original population. So it's decimated kind of. It's like 1,700 people. This town, an opportunity for this town to really like excel and move forward is to keep the dollars local. And you see it all around here in very successful tourist towns. I was just in Blue Ridge, Georgia yesterday. That place is booming, and it's all local business. So that boom of local business generates educational revenue. It solves social problems without government intervention in a way that's just organic. And so I look at it as like a shortcut, right? Like, it's a shortcut. If I can just inform people who are like living in cabins, and people retire here who are wealthy and all that they can get like, that special I don't know, moisturizer at the local tanning shop that they have no knowledge of because they just search for it on Google. Like, why not, right? Because all they do is they just drive into town and they unload their money here, as opposed to just giving it to Jeff Bezos, who doesn't need more money. Yeah, and the only reason they're doing it at this point, Amazon isn't even competitive on price. I'm sure people are aware of that. But the only reason that they're doing it is out of habit. And if we can break that habit, if we can create, if we can index all of these businesses around here and let them know what's available in Google search, then we can intercept those dollars and give them information they never had.
And that is exactly what Amazon did in the first place. They manipulated human habits to shop online instead of going outside and shopping at the local market. So let's talk about where the story began. Where did you got this idea of virtual storefronts?
So I had been working in marketing for almost 8 years, online marketing, using mostly Facebook, Instagram. I was essentially a social media marketer, and I would sell high ticket items online. So start up Facebook groups I actually sold fine art for quite some time. Because if you're just doing retail for socks online, I mean, the numbers don't work out. It has to be a high ticket commission item in order for the numbers to really work out. So I did that for quite a while. And then I also worked with local businesses selling larger ticket items. I did a feed that collected local businesses and they paid a subscription fee. It was like an early version of this. So I had quite a bit of experience working with local businesses, and I was kind of problem solving, like troubleshooting how to use the scale of, because one of the things local businesses have an advantage of is that there's a lot of them, right? Like there's a lot of small businesses in the United States of America. It's like it employs 50% of the people in the country. It's very common that these businesses exist. So organizing them was always kind of like, I'm like trying to put the puzzle together, we have all of these local businesses and we have like social technology, but there's all these barriers. So I was like, eventually with Facebook, I was just like, this is a mess. Like there is you can't effectively do the job on Facebook. They got $240 million they need to earn today in advertising money. So the opportunity's not there. You can't work with someone who's completely committed to a completely different TV model. So that was kind of the breaking point where I was like using social media to sell local businesses. And I was like, this stuff just doesn't work, And that is the origin. Also, this all coincided with COVID. So in 2020, in 2020, we were starting to look at I was considering developing virtual storefronts as a component of another platform. And that in 2020 was like, all of a sudden, these businesses were getting hammered. And it was, e-commerce was the rage at the time. So it was like, how do we get these businesses, how do we get people to know what's in these businesses without walking in the door, right? Mm-hmm. Like, huge problem. So what Google tells people, and this is where Google really has failed for 20 years, is it tells the local business owner, hey, no problem. You can go right ahead and tell us everything about your business. All you need to do is register a domain, find a host, get a website designer. What are you talking about? Solve that problem yourself. Why is Google giving me this insane problem to solve? Right? So
that's right. All these platforms, Shopify, Wix, WordPress, this platform which takes advantage of your, not take advantage, but actually deliver value on not spending so much time and understanding all this.
Yeah. All of those platforms are genius. I think Squarespace and Wix and all of those, I think they're all right on the right track, but it still doesn't, there's no way to get out of the trap that you have to register a domain and SSL certificates. And it's still I remember once reading an article, the easy way to set up a WordPress site. And it was this is the easiest 5-minute solution. It was 11 pages long. And I'm like, and I'm like, that's the problem. It's a technical problem that's not solved by Google, but Google has no problem being like, hey, business owner, No problem. We'll index everything of your business. Just set your own website up. That's a ridiculous thing to ask the public. And it's because Google's customer, again, this is another mismatch. Google doesn't care about the local business. They just host those businesses because they have to, because the public expects it. Google's real customers are M&Ms and like the 20 million, the 2 billion people with Gmail. I mean, like the public, that's it. That's their real customer. Everything else is, the merchants are an afterthought. So for like the premise behind this was, well, let's just solve that problem for merchants, and also at the same time, build a network around the needs of the merchants. This is we're essentially a first to market network that's designed specifically to fulfill the needs of merchants. And I think the reason for that is because in the United States, there's this ingrained, I mean, even worldwide, just in kind of capitalism's configuration, there's this ingrained like expectation that the customer is always right. It's all about the customer. It's never about the people who serve the customers. We serve the people serving customers. That is our mission here, is to serve those businesses. They are our clients. Making them happy is our number one goal. We don't even have a way for people to submit reviews on virtual storefronts because we want people to be able to control. We're not looking to be Yelp. We want to be away from that. So, and also we're 100% opt-in. We don't scrape the internet and then say, upgrade your profile on virtual storefronts. They simply have to buy in order to do it. But people are, in order to be part of the network, but people are happy to buy in because here's, again, Google's giving you this problem. What's inside your storefront, no one knows until you know what's inside your store. No, Google has no clue until you tell it.
You
just tell Google.
Yeah. So tell me one thing. A lot of founders or a lot of business owners, they struggle with the fact that they don't know how to market their business. And you're coming into the scene, telling them for $100, $200, $200, you will help them set up their online identity with virtual storefronts, but you will also make sure that they will get a lot of traction, right, with the help of Google, the mighty Google, to be fair.
Yeah,
Could
mighty
you
Google. Yeah.
walk me through the step-by-step process, what your storefront does in order to provide a storefront, let's say for me, for a bakery shop, and how you optimize it for locally, for me, so that local people can come and buy the bread I make from my mom's secret recipe?
Well, that is a great question. First of all, Google will help you sell your bread because Google knows you're a bakery, right? So like that's actually not the problem that we solve. We solve the problem that's all around that problem. So Google knows you're a bakery, but and I'm glad that you mentioned. I'm glad that you mentioned. I'm going to go ahead and share a screen if that's okay, because I think this is a perfect time to demo.
But you have to also walk me through the website while talking about it, because it's going to be on the podcast, right? So just make sure you.
Oh yeah, I'm going to walk you through the whole thing while I demo. Yeah. So can you see the search?
Yeah.
So check this out. We're going to look at woodworking crafts in Andrews, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see this result right here? Mm-hmm. This is our local bakery.
Okay.
So like, do you see? So wrap your head around that for a second. We're telling Google that this place is primarily a bakery. We're telling Google that this store has far more than baked goods. We're fully informing Google about what's inside this store. So do you see what we're doing? We're educating Google about what's available locally. And we do that by technically keyword stuffing. This is something that Google says is a huge no-no. But, right, so this is a list of keywords inside a virtual storefront that describes the business. But here's Google's dilemma. We're providing authentic, collaborative information with these businesses that Google doesn't know anything about, except that you can get bread there. Google does know that. Google knows you can get beer at the brewery. Google does not know you can get hummus at the brewery. So we're providing all of this authentic information. You can see woodworking crafts is right here. right? So we're explaining to Google that this unique business, which has indeed woodworking crafts, is the local bakery. Strange, right?
Okay.
So that's the kind of premise that our premise is that we need to make sure that the businesses that the businesses are fully described with the keywords. And again, this list of keywords, I'll stop sharing now. That list of keywords is technically keyword stuffing, right? So Google says, never do that. Like, that's against our rules. You're keyword stuffing, right? And technically we are, but at the same time, we're like, here's how we present authentic information to you. Now, your machines can make a decision about how they want to use it. And it's really, at the end of the day, Google's obligation when there's good quality information. It's Google's obligation. And I'm sure there's some founders out there that this will get your brain churning. But like when you give Google legit information in whatever form it might be, Google really has to get over it. Like,
the question is, I understand that you have stuffed keyword and you genuinely want to tell Google the information, but not necessarily every page ranks on the first page of Google, especially for these keywords. Because I've heard it, I'm not an SEO specialist, but I've heard it from several people in my interviews, etc., that it's not just about giving the information, it's also about backlinks and I don't know, press release.
Right. There's a whole lot to SEO.
Yeah.
Like the art form of SEO. I'm not what I'm getting at is that the art form of SEO is its own thing, right? But like the perfect SEO page is a landing page of marketing copy that no one reads, that's completely useless to someone who lands there, right? Like that's what Google is telling us is really useful, right? So what I'm saying is Google's simply going to have to adapt to the future of how information is presented to it. So I'm not poo-pooing on what the wisdom of SEO, because I understand that there's a huge amount of information, but at the same time, Google's job is to know things. And if it refuses to know things because those things don't come in the exact form that it dictates, then it's failing at its job. Ironically, Google is not doing that. Google is indexing. We have 125 businesses in our pilot right now. Google is indexing those pages. In other words, they're showing up in Google search results. Our storefronts are showing up for all kinds of searches 30,000 times a month. That was 5,000. It was 5,000 at the beginning of the year for about 70 pages. Now, 6 months later, at the end of our pilot, it's 30,000 times that we're showing up. So Google's machines are contradicting Google's stated policy, because the machines are saying, oh my God, well, these people are actually opening the door so that I can see inside this business, and see what's in there. That's actually really useful information. I don't really like how it's here, but so it's a strange phenomena, but it's one way of saying that, like, if you do something that's truly authentic, and it's very authentic to like work directly with a business owner to create their profile. I mean, Yelp, they just scrape the internet and they spit out a profile and they call you, hey, do you want to be featured? It's going to cost, click that box and it'll cost all these things. Like, that's not collaborative. That's like, we already have you in our system and pay us to make you more visible. Whereas ours is, you're not in our system until you make a purchase from us, and then we build your identity with you. We take all of the information, we go to your store, we take all of the information that is available and we build it out, and we do it quickly, and we publish it, and we have Google index it. So it's a unique solution. It's an invention, really, is what I would call it.
So correct me if I already have a bakery website, but I also have an identity on virtual storefront. That means my virtual storefront subdomain website will rank on the first page, and that people go on that page and then they click on my website link to go on my website, right?
So This is a really in the weeds question, because what Google does in search results is actually multifaceted, and like no one really knows what the secret sauce is. I can speak to what actually happens in many cases. So the three different ways in which people might find homespun hobbies, if they're looking for bread or if they're looking for something that's more common. Google really, like the Google business listing understands that. Google's machines know that bakeries, and sometimes they're wrong, like they'll say they have cupcakes, but they don't have cupcakes. They just assume they do because they're a bakery. So like Google knows all of that part. And when you type in like bakery near me, Google's own Google business listing has got that covered. You know, beer, I need craft beer. It's Google's own business listing has got the Hobby Trout Brewery covered. You know, they know about that. It's the person's websites, generally speaking, these websites, they don't have much information. They have, most people's business websites have significantly less useful information than a virtual storefront does.
Right.
So like there's nothing on their website at Homespun Hobbies about woodworking crafts, because how would they ever get into that? That would be like page 10 of like copy that they're technically writing for SEO optimization. They would never even get there. They have a one pager that has a kind of a rundown just to have a web presence. So we're giving a much more in-depth profile. So another way in which we might show up in search results, and why we have web designers who recommend us to be a supplement to even enterprise websites for larger local businesses, is because in Places, Google has its own internal ranking called Places. I'm sure everyone's familiar with it. I could show you how that works. That internal ranking is another place that Google will spit out search results as well. So it's not always the virtual storefront, but virtual storefronts can be informing Google about things that put it into Places or rank it higher in Places. Does that make sense? It's kind of a mess, but like that's how online search is.
So yeah, this conversation is so interesting because a lot of my listeners are founders and they would like to know more, but unfortunately we are heading towards the end. So I would like to pick from your brain 3 tips for founders which they could use on their website to rank on number 1, let's say, from somebody who already knows how to do it.
Well, I don't know that I can speak directly to people's website. I can tell you, go get yourself a virtual. That was a joke. No, but we like. I think that I will give a search tip. I think that is a very that kind of spans the ages. I actually had this experience yesterday at a live edge wood shop. So we were at this place that creates these almost conference tables, right? And they have beautiful tables, but all of their branding, none of it says conference tables. So here's my SEO search tip is think about what you're doing, not in terms of necessarily, I understand that most people who are doing search, you have to think in terms of what the searcher is looking for, not in terms of like what you use as lingo internally. But also think about how what you're doing is, can be reframed into another useful thing, right? So everyone who's doing something, if you're putting your life into something, which founders are, it's exactly what founders are doing. If you're putting your life into something, then, and it's growing and you want it to grow, then it has to have like 3, 4, 5 different kinds of facets to it, right? And it's really because you're a translator of everything that you do by default, which is a huge job that all founders have, and it's a very hard job. You're in charge of the language, and you're in charge of like the communicating and making people understand what you do. If you figure out what it is you do, that you can look at that live edge table, and that's what it said, live edge table. And when I walked into this customer, and they're like, I said, this is a conference table. I would put conference table in your storefront, because we're talking about wood pieces that are $5,000, $6,000 each, and I'm like, this is actually a really economical conference table that you're selling here. And they were like, oh, we never thought of that. I'm like, they don't have it on their business card. They don't have it anywhere. They don't have it on their website. That kind of thinking, like reframing what you do in another use is, I think it's a challenge to step out of your own frame of reference, your own point of view. You could talk to other people about how they see you as well. That's also, getting that feedback is great. So that would be one thing I would recommend, is figuring out how you fit in all kinds of different places.
Do you have any tools which you could recommend to our listeners to
Yes.
understand how to think differently or come up with different keyword ideas?
Yes. Well, I since we're talking to founders, I think that it's important to, I think I should just talk on a more elemental level about like how I operate day to day, like essentially like personal hacks on how to get productivity hacks. And one of those is one of my number one productivity hack is, and this is helpful, and almost very rarely is it not helpful, is to document what I'm doing every day as soon as possible. When I get a breather, I go back, I block every 3-hour time period in my day into a notes app. And it's an ongoing chronology of, I mean, it's a diary, as you would call, like a work diary. But if you go through and you just write down, if everyone who's watching this video right now goes to a notes app and says, and writes the date at the top for yesterday, and then chronologically goes through and just writes down everything that they've done, you're going to make so much more sense of what you're going to be doing now and in the future, because you see patterns in your own behavior, in your own, it's like you are prioritizing your own self all the time, your own time as a founder. And if you can actually look and see how you're prioritizing it, it's much easier to make the next decision. And not only make the next decision, but make it informed based on your own habits and your own workflow. And the other thing that's awesome is you can flag stuff that's not working. You know, it's like, wow, I spent 5 hours, like there's stuff that I do that's very time consuming, like events. I had to cut out events because events were what I call maximum effort, least impact. Here's another really important, I think, hack is like evaluate everything that you're doing in terms of like, is this, and you may not know, but try to get to the point where you do know, like, this is something it's the least amount of effort. It takes the least effort from me, because you're just one person on a timeline. I'm actually a solo founder, so it's kind of crazy. I do have a lot of help. I do have a lot of assistance, and I don't do technical development. I guide it, but I don't do it. So, but look at what you're doing and say, what is it I can do that has the least amount of effort that has the most impact? Like for us, it's like sales, or, it's like sales. If I sell 10 storefronts, next week, every conversation with funders is going to be easier. Like it's elemental. It's like figuring out the thing because it's like sales is so essential to what it is you're doing, that the impact of it isn't just that I have another $199 in the bank. The impact of it is a measurable outcome that really matters, for this business, and also like is a metric that moves the needle in other ways. So I would really recommend evaluating, what's the least effort, highest impact. I actually have a note right. This is a note to self. It's all like max impact, least effort.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So that's good, but unfortunately we are heading towards the end of our interview. But I have a quick gem for you. We have a lightning round with 6 random questions from our listeners from our episodes. I am going to ask you these 6 questions, and you just have to answer them as quickly as possible. You ready?
Okay.
Awesome.
I'm ready.
What's one of the best pieces of business advice you have received?
Don't optimize too early. I'm going to go right back to that one. That was really great. And sell when you need to.
Okay. What book would you recommend to our audience and why?
Oh, darn. That's really hard. I would recommend fiction. Like I would recommend something that really takes your mind off things, because long focused reading. I read John McDonald books. They're old detective novels that are really well written from the 50s, and it just helps your mind. Like reading helps your mind understand things in different ways. I'll read something and it'll just it's like something will pop up that's unrelated to the reading about work, because it gives your mind a rest, but it keeps it active at the same time. So I'm a huge fan of reading. I'm also the son of an English professor, so I'm a little biased.
Okay. What's one attribute or characteristic in your mind of a successful founder?
Not doing things. So, not reacting. Like this is like a lot of the times you really have to keep your cool, because there's a lot coming at you. And if one of the maxims of life is you can't control what happens to you, but you can control your response to what happens to you. And I've found that controlling my response to what happens to me really helps. And also knowing things that have negative impacts, and like just avoiding those things, almost like a like just by by habit, would be, even if it's not like convenient, I will avoid things that are negative. But yeah, just how you react. It's a lot of work to not react. The Queen of England used to say that.
Yeah.
Her job was to like not get involved, or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. What's your favorite personal productivity tool or habit?
Well, Simple Note is my number one productivity tool. If it's the automatic. It's automatics. So essentially it's WordPress's free tool. It works on every single device. It is amazing. I use it for publishing. I publish a timeline called VS Headlines. That's just a simple chronology, starting with most recent at top. But I also use it. I create a note for each week that I'm working every week. Like this is the 41st week of the year, and so that note is an ongoing note, and then that'll be archived in Simple Note. It's just text, and it's brilliant.
What's a new or crazy business idea you would love to pursue if you had time?
Are you looking for the craziest business idea, or okay? So, all right. I think that whoever does 3D printing needs to 3D print toilet paper holders with like Elon Musk, and with I don't know, like Mark Zuckerberg, like 3D printing toilet paper holders for like tech figures that are, are tech icons. I think that would be funny.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. And last,
I mean, that's really, really random. Yeah, but
yeah. And last question is, what's an interesting or fun fact about you that most people don't know?
I think that probably most people don't know that I was a professional. I worked as a professional career photographer in New York City and Minneapolis for most of my career, doing marketing in terms of image making, and that what I'm doing now is an outgrowth of that. It's a presentation to the public of, it's not just technology that we're doing. It's a presentation to the public of a business. So I have a whole like career working, at Target and 3M and all of these other different businesses that are major corporations, and but as an independent contractor, as a photographer.
Okay, that's interesting. Great. Well, Tobin, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story and backing the last few years of building this business and some of the up and up. People want to check out your assortment. What's the best way to do that? What's the website?
So it's the best way to do it, I think, is this. So huge thing that was overcome this year was translating my in-person pitch to a digital pitch. And we really had to get into that. This was a massive effort. It's .co. I call it the .co page because it's virtualstorefronts.co is our sales page. .com is where the actual tool is. The tool itself is amazing. We just opened a nationwide feed. We have feed automation on virtual storefronts. But if you want to learn about the product, I think that you should really, and if you want to learn about sales, the contractor that we got to help us with this and did a great job. His name is Paul Counts, and we built a storefront for him. He's, so he's ranking for search terms in Seattle as a digital marketer. So I would go to virtualstorefronts.co and look at that pitch because it is a major achievement to translate something that's, and many of your founders have this issue. It's like, I've invented something, like how do I translate that to, something that the public can look at? And this was it took us months to do, working together.
Sure.
So if anyone's looking for help with that, I know just the guy. So
Sure.
like marketing, as everyone knows, marketing is one thing. Driving traffic is one thing. Yeah, we can get the clicks there. The question is, once they get there, the real work, the real roll up your sleeves work comes when it comes to like the actual clicking that button and making, someone actually making the sale. And then that's a really important thing. Yeah.
So if folks want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
I would say my Facebook profile is like essentially a public profile. And that's just, if you just Google Tobin, virtual storefronts, Facebook, you'll find me anywhere. LinkedIn would be the way to really, in terms of professional, like, lateral movement. And then virtual storefronts itself can be followed on any platform. So TikTok, we use Buffer to put out our stuff. Buffer is a great platform. Highly recommend that tool. So yeah, we just put out posts and automate those to X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, et cetera, et cetera. And we do have a group on Facebook if you want to join that. It's called Technology Without the Work.
Okay.
And that's essentially our support and community group for people who are interested in virtual storefronts and want to track what's going on.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, Tobin, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your inspiring journey and the impactful work you're doing through virtual storefronts. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on Founders Podcast.
It's been great being here. Thanks, Ash, for having me. And I appreciate you, taking the time to put together all of this production. And I mean, it's not an easy job. So it's good to be here. Thanks.
Thank you all for tuning into this episode of our Founders Podcast. I hope you found our conversation with Tobin insightful and inspiring. If you're a founder or an industry expert interested in sharing your story on our Founders Podcast, please don't hesitate to reach out. Simply email me at ash@artcircles.com. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to our podcast and stay updated on our future interviews with proven founders and industry experts. Stay inspired, stay motivated, and keep building.